So inheriting a property can be one of the biggest blessings and one of the biggest curses in your entire life. In this episode, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I've actually got a Florida probate attorney that I'm going to be interviewing, and we're going to answer the question, can siblings force the sale of an inherited property? Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing episode. I got my friend Al Nicoletti here. He is an attorney practicing law in Florida. He's going to give you all the nuts and bolts of can a sibling actually force the sale of an inherited property. So let's go. Let's jump right into it. What's going on, Al Nicoletti? How are you today?
Brent, I'm doing awesome, man. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Good to see you as well. Thank you for jumping on here with me. And at the end of the day, I would rather have an expert professional probate attorney answer the question, can siblings force the sale of an inherited property? So that happens a lot, inherited property. And usually you have a sibling. I see that a lot of people have issues with siblings. Like that's the fastest way to drive a wedge and separate family when someone inherits property, especially if you've got a sibling. So I know you have some pointers for that as well, but let's talk about what happens.
Yeah, Brent, great question. And I'm happy to talk about this because it is a popular hot topic question. So there's definitely some different routes that come up with this. So we'll start with the basic route through probate, right? So let's just say mom owns the property. There's 4 kids ever, no will. I mean, there's nothing else going on, 4 kids. And investor approaches one of them, says, hey, do you want to sell the property? One's like, yes. And then they're like, well, who else is around? And they're like, well, we got 3 other brothers and sisters. So you go to each of them. Yeah, it gets, how that goes, that whole story. And you go to each of them and one says yes, the other says yes, but then the last one says no. And that's when the analysis starts, right? Running your numbers and figuring out what are our options, what happens in these situations, right? So the first thing you're thinking is, what type of property is it, right?
Yeah.
Is it the primary residence or is it not? Maybe it was a rental property, or maybe it was a secondary, or maybe in fact, we're talking about land. Maybe it's marketing to land and all of a sudden that, you have 4 of them, one doesn't want to sell. So it gets really interesting because we'll break homestead down at the end, but I'll go through the probate process. So sometimes there's a way, if the numbers make sense and they're justified with the price of the property, there's a way that maybe there can be a solution where the property gets sold through the probate, even if one doesn't agree. Yeah, that could happen either through formal notice or laying the record, maybe then setting it for hearing and then figuring out whether or not the sale could go forward. So that's a really good route because now you're not involving a second proceeding like a lawsuit. You're trying to address it in the probate. So it gets really interesting, Brent, because that's the preferred route. If that's possible and you can address it in one proceeding, great, that could be possible. So you never know, that could happen. But the common one that comes up is when it's a primary residence, right? What happens? It was the home. You grew up there. It was sentimental. It had that value to it. So same scenario. 3 want to sell, 1 doesn't. What happens? Well, we always start with step 1. No matter what, mom dies, we got to do the probate. Unless it's a special deed with magic language, or maybe there was a will leaving it to 1 or 2. You're really looking at a situation of you got to do the probate, moving the title to everybody. Now what happens, right? We do the probate, we get the court order. Court order says it gets go into all 4 of the children. 3 want to sell, 1 doesn't. What's the next step? Well, really, there could be 2 options. 1, the 3 of them could technically sell their interest to the person that wants to buy it. Right. So there could be a situation where the 3 of them want to just get rid of their interest, sell the interest of the person. So they own 3/4 and the other person owns 1/4. And the person that bought the 3/4 can address a lawsuit against the one that owns the 1/4. Or the other way is say, okay, we don't want to even sell our interest. We just want to force the sale and get the sale to either a listing or an auction. Right.
I see that a lot. Like, hey, 2 of them don't want to sell, 1 does. And how do you force that? So guys, if you are going through a situation like this with one of your siblings, please share it in the comments. See if we can help each other out.
This is where it gets interesting. Now that probate's done, the 3 of them could go to an attorney and say, hey, we want to sell our property. We want to get this listed, push it to an auction, do something with it. So then they would retain the attorney. They would file a lawsuit called a partition action. It's an actual suit to force the sale of the property. And with recent changes in case law and in statutes back in 2020, now in Florida, they follow the Uniform Partition Act, which is where if it's inherited property, the one that doesn't want to sell gets the opportunity, the right of first refusal to buy out the others for fair market value based on appraisals, or maybe there's competing appraisals and the judge orders an appraisal. But basically, it's the opportunity for the heir that inherited it to buy out the others. Now, here's what happens, Brent. Let's just be real. How often does that happen, right? It doesn't happen as much as you think, where the other person can qualify for the loan, maybe with interest rates being so high and employment and whatever happens.
Well, that's the exact problem I'm having right now with a piece of land that I sold, and I'm collecting the payments. I had a 30-year mortgage and they have paid every single month on time. And then the guy passed away, and he's got two sisters and a brother. The brother is actually living on the land in a small cabin that was put on the land. He wants to stay. The sisters want to sell, and he's having a hard time qualifying for a loan because he already owns 1/3 of it.
So there you go. And you see it on the ground level, which is, that's a hard scenario. So what happens when they don't qualify, right? What happens when they're not able to comply or execute their right of first refusal because they don't qualify? Then it moves forward as normal, like a partition, which is you do service to all the heirs or whoever doesn't want to sell. You go through the motions. Maybe they get a lawyer, maybe they don't. But eventually it's going to come to a point where the judge is going to say, we can't just take a chainsaw and cut the property in half, right? You can't just do that. But now they would say, okay, what is equitable? And what's equitable is taking the property, putting it on an auction or putting it to a private sale. Maybe a realtor lists the property, and therefore it goes for either top dollar or for a price that it needs to. And everybody gets their interest, their share in the property, right? Because holding three people that must keep the property that don't want to is crazy. So the partition is a way that addresses when people don't want to sell. And Brent, it happens with boyfriend, girlfriend. Let's just say the divorce didn't even include anything with the residence, and if the lawyers forgot to put it in there. It can happen with ex-wife, ex-husband. So whether inherited property, boyfriend, girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, you never know when this comes up, but partition is that method that can help that situation when you come across it.
So definitely the answer is yes, a sibling can force the sale of a piece of property or an inherited property. So, well, thanks so much for answering that question. I love that you had mentioned the special wording in the magic deed. I know you have also recommended like putting things in trust to kind of avoid these problems in the future, because I'll tell you, like, the fastest way for a parent to put a wedge between their children is to not have things figured out whenever they pass away. Have that thing in a trust, have that property in a trust, and already have dictated what's going to happen. And don't leave that to the heirs. Don't leave that to the children to make those decisions, because you are going to divide them.
Yeah. And it gets really sticky sometimes. So the one takeaway too is that you want to make sure you really run the numbers, right? Because the other analysis is, what has the one that doesn't want to sell? What kind of money have they put into that property? Expenses, insurance, utilities, mortgage payments, because there are expenses that get reimbursed in those situations. So, and like you said, the ultimate conclusion, Brent, is yes, there can be a forced sale of inherited property. There's just procedures and different things that you got to look out for, but it's possible.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Al. How can people find out more about you? I know you practice law in Florida. Give our audience where they can find you.
Yeah, Brent, awesome. And again, great video that we're doing here. You can find me on my YouTube channel under Al Nicoletti, under Facebook. I have a business page, and I have an Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. And you can find all the content that I have on my show on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. I am out there.
Heck yeah. And it'll also be in the description and the notes below. So you can click on that and get right to Al. And guys, maybe you have a property that you're looking to sell. We buy land all over the country. We buy houses and properties all over the country. I want you to head on over to ZechBuysHouses.com. We help people all the time with inherited properties. We find amazing attorneys like Al Nicoletti here to help serve you, and we take care of the entire process. So head on over to ZechBuysHouses.com, and we'll see you on the next video.